welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is Cyrus coming at you with a new video. Again, I've not been so active on here. I apologize about that. I've been waiting for the usual 3 or 4 videos a week. It has been a little bit trickier lately between my kind of normal work schedule that's picked up lately, as well as the general sluggishness I have for productivity, given I still have lingering problems with the virus that shall not be named that has left me with a long haul condition, which is a little bit like having mononucleosis or Epstein-Barr virus on crack. So just to give you people like a small understanding of what we are talking about. But anyway, enough about me. I want to, in this video, share something that's really cool. And it's the concept of actual photographs, actual images from the other side, from the afterlife. This is something which I think for many people would be unbelievable upon first reference for normies, right? So normies don't know about, for example, there's a lot of objective evidence of the afterlife, which we would refer to as a different dimension, a different plane of existence. And instead of just being purely theoretical or conceptual, we know from this channel and the evidence I've been presenting on this channel for a couple of years, the evidence in my books, the evidence in books by authors like Victor Zamet, as well as many others out there, that there is evidence that there really is experiences and documentation of experiences with this other world, which of course represents a whole spectrum of existence and calls into question world religions and the origins of spiritual beliefs and all of that kind of thing, right? And then the most obvious, clearest example is often astral projection, which I practice, and at least before I got sick this year, I was quite fluent in having astral projection experiences. It's a lot less active these days, but this would mean being fully conscious in a fully tangible parallel dimension after having an out-of-body experience. Of course, this also happens to people having near-death experiences where they find themselves in other worlds, meeting deceased loved ones, and all of that. I'm not going to rehash the whole afterlife subject here. I want to get into specifically 3 different case studies of photographs that are being submitted, beamed in, if you will, from that dimension into this dimension. At least the alleged cases of that happening, and what I know about these photos, what I can share with you, and maybe illuminate some possibilities in your mind. Before we go further, though, this is Afterlife Topics, where, as hence the name of the channel, this is the type of stuff that we like to talk about here, as well as we do the podcast with guest interviews, things like that. If you go down and hit that subscribe button, liking the video, sharing it helps keep this little channel in operation. And of course, if you want to become a patron and join the guest interviews or do unlimited coaching with me and that kind of stuff, you can head to patreon.com/afterlife topics. And a special shout out to the patrons who have come around lately, and a special shout out to my phone, where it's usually quiet until I'm doing a video and then it starts blowing up. So let's just take care of that right now. And it just won't stop, will it? And let's continue. So the first thing I want to bring up is a experimenter named Klaus Schreiber. So Klaus Schreiber was a pioneer of ITC, and so he was highlighted over at Mark Macy's website that hasn't been updated since 1996, worlditc.org. And this is part of the whole time stream phenomena that happened in the 90s, with multiple experimenters receiving all this information on their, basically on their sort of, I wouldn't say pre-internet. I don't know if they had internet at the time. Basically, they're their computers. This was like the early mid 90s. So yeah, they may have been connected to the internet, but it's very unlikely that would explain anything that was happening. That somebody was like hacking into their computer using some kind of remote computing technology. I don't think that explanation makes a lot of sense. They were receiving things like messages and images on their computers. And then, in particular, they were getting ITC images from television feedback loops. So I guess it really began with Klaus Schreiber. What he was doing was aiming a video camera at a television and feeding the output of the video camera back into the TV. The result was a continuous feedback loop that produced a churning mist of static on the TV screen. Images such as this would gradually emerge from the mist. So this is I want to include this description right here because one of the reported communications from the other side through Klaus Schreiber was Jules Verne. And this is a great little paragraph here I wanted to include for all of you people who get in a tizzy when we talk about topics like SEX or the idea that the afterlife has to be this super puritanical place where it's completely non-physical or just bouncing around as the often cited, often cliche orb of light. We know from afterlife accounts that it is more like a higher dimensional version of this world. There's a lot of crazy stuff which people may not suspect, right? So this was a fun paragraph to address that. French author Jules Verne sent a 3-page fax to Maggie Harsch-Fischbach, I assume that's his wife, of Luxembourg, describing how he died and awakened in the next world. He described that after years of suffering from rheumatism, gout, diabetes, and blindness, he said he was somehow magically transported into a lavish temple. He awakened to find himself amid solid silver furniture and aromatic fountains. Here's the best part. Tanned dancing girls in skin-tight blue and orange silk costumes inquired as to his every desire. He was free of pain and he was overwhelmed by the heavenly sensations of it all. It doesn't sound like a terrible place, although I don't know if there was a Mrs. Jules Verne, what she may have thought about that. We're finding that many people who die and awaken in the next world are overwhelmed by how amazing it is. And look, this stuff, it's not like it's an alien concept to me. Like my first out-of-body experience, well, I wasn't in this kind of temple, but I was outside of a temple, and I was there as solid as I'm sitting here right now and able to like go around and talk to people and be in this environment, which was pretty awesome. And that was the first time that I had like a conversation with somebody in that existence, in that state. And like they knew I was out of body, they knew what was going on, and they told me exactly what was going on, where I was, what was happening. There was no mistake about it. So for me, this doesn't seem like a crazy concept, awakening in a temple or appearing in a world like this one. But there are some unusual elements of this time stream stuff that came out of the 90s. I'm going to get to that in a moment before we jump into the photographs. So this is all kind of a primer on some of the ITC images, where they came from, and so I wanted basically to catch people up to speed a little bit. So a picture of Hollywood filmmaker Hal Roach was planted by invisible hands in the Harsch-Fischbach computer in Luxembourg in 1992. It gives a glimpse of the breathtaking beauty in that part of the spirit worlds. By the way, Luxembourg was also where Konstantin Rodive was based, and I can probably talk a lot about Konstantin Rodive. He was the pioneer of EVP and ITC, and still quite active today. And I've talked about this on videos from yesteryear involving like when I was at a physical mediumship seance along with Sonia Rinaldi, and allegedly Rodive materialized into the room and actually corresponded with Rinaldi and provided some information that I think only she would really understand. So I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but the point is that Luxembourg was, maybe still is, there's this little micro country that's attached to Germany. It is and was and maybe is kind of a center of ITC and paranormal imagery. So it is interesting how that came into be. Luxembourg must be a fabulous place to live, but it's one of those things where I guess you almost have to be born into it to be able to live in a country like that. We have those micro states. I went to Monaco once, which is attached to the French Riviera. You can visit. Wasn't as expensive as you might think it is. You can actually go down and have some fish tacos, and for $8. But to actually live there, you pretty much have to be in this elite class of society. I don't know if Luxembourg is similar to that. Anyway, the picture gives a glimpse of the breathtaking beauty of in that part of the spirit worlds, which our spirit friends call the fifth level, or what some of us call the higher astral planes. I believe that is the same spiritual realm which Christians may call heaven, and spiritualists call Summerland. And, it's a more, it's a more like heavenly looking, higher vibrational state of existence, which doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be radically different still from the plane, the realm just beneath it, but everything is stepped up a notch. Everything is more serene, more beautiful, more pristine. And they often reference this in contrast, the higher astral, in contrast to the middle astral, which is usually where a lot of us go in out-of-body experiences, where it's quite, shall we say, Earth-like. So it's still way nicer than this world, but that middle astral, you have your astral Arby's and astral desk jobs, and that's not everybody's cup of tea. And then you move up in caliber a little bit, and you get into some more, what we call heavenly environments, and that's the image that came through. So let's keep reading. Apparently, all three of the people in the picture that you're about to see, Hal Roach, Jeanette, which was George Meek, the famous paranormal researcher, Jeanette Meek, his wife, and Nancy Carroll, are associated with the group known as Time Stream, a group of more than 1,000 spirit beings dedicated to the task of opening the veil by improving communications between our world and theirs. So next slide. This is something, I'm going to get to this one in a second, but let's look at the picture. So this is the picture that allegedly came through. So you'll have Hal Roach. I don't know who this guy is. I guess he was popular, for that era. That is to say, I don't know, that era being the 60s or 70s. He must have passed away at some point, and for some reason he made an appearance. Now then, on the top left, we'll see George Meek's wife kind of photoshopped in there. I don't know why it's just her disembodied head. I never understood that. Maybe they can just Photoshop images on that side using their mind, so you don't have to open up software. You just have to look at the image. But I want to put this here and this here and this here. I think it would have been better if she just appeared normally, but whatever. And then there was this other Carol lady right there as well. And then you can kind of see the in the foreground what looks like a natural landscape of meadows and what might be a lake, and you have mountains and bushes. It's like when I had my experience, I noticed that there were bushes, and something that was on my mind is that if there's bushes, it means that there must be like, I don't know, I was wondering how physical and real it was. And so I remember I spent some time like grabbing bushes with my hand and like pulling weeds out, and I was basically doing a little bit of astral gardening for whoever owned this temple during that first experience I had, because I was just wondering, are these real bushes? Can they die? Do they operate the same as our bushes? And the answer was yes. It was just normal shrubs and bushes and plants. And this was in this kind of higher astral realm. So it is interesting that nature and plants and things like that continue on that side, if the image is real, which I have to put a big asterisk, if this is real. There was more stuff that was coming out of Time Stream, for example. So George Meek was still alive when Jeanette Meek passed away, and when his wife passed away first. And when all this Time Stream stuff started activating, and everybody began getting these kind of images and messages and faxes, this was basically like a Word document. I don't know if they had Microsoft Word like 94 or 95, whenever this was. So maybe they did, but let's say it was like WordPad. A file opened up on their like Windows 95 computer, or Windows 93, whatever came before 95. And this was the message that appeared. And what's funny is I've actually received emails like this just in the last month from sometimes someone who watches this channel, but they forget to use spaces or punctuation. They just write to me like this. But in this case, there's an explanation for why it's like this, because it was a spirit trying to operate their computer without using the keyboard, and this was their attempt at doing it. And so this was the message that came up on Meek's computer from his wife. And I'm not going to read this whole thing off, but if I read this, I want to shout and say it really fast. Not only to do such as take caps off, blah 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 blah, tell somebody else, Jay, what to do, expert advice. Well, it's people who do not believe in contacts you, friends who are having risk, blah blah blah. So I have a little bit of a difficult time reading this, but if you want, you could pause the video and then you could see what this whole message is. But it is, it's kind of convincing to me in some weird way. Let's see if I can just try to translate some of this. Dear George W., as in George Meek, I'd like to cook up a few names for you, believing I could have wings. I am sure you call. I have often told you that there are lots of things you come in hands for. Not only, I don't, again, I'm not going to try to translate all of this, but from what I'm aware of, there's some very specific information that she's using to identify herself, that it really is his wife that had left this message. It wasn't somebody else involved in this group at this time. It was all, that this was a legitimate message that came through. So that's kind of the story with TimeStream. Now, there's controversy surrounding TimeStream, which I don't want to get into all of it in this video, but the thing is that there was this science fiction book that came out in the 70s. I believe it was called River World, right? And so some investigators who were reading this story of these communications in the 90s were basically like, hey, this really matches this sci-fi fantasy book in the 90s, which I think it included deceased Jules Verne. It included, I believe, a group called TimeStream. And then there were some other images and messages that came out of this describing a river of eternity, and that was a focal point of the book. So it's very, very strange that the book had these exact details in a sci-fi story. That was the messaging coming through this group. And so some of the people who are more cynical about Afterlife subject, Michael Prescott, they took that information basically to say the whole thing is bunk. Now, those of us who do deeper research, we have to look at things a little bit dynamically and see what was going on, who was involved, what was happening, where were the images coming from, who was responsible for these things. Because there was a lot of phenomena happening at that time, including also Sonia Rinaldi. I believe Mark Macy, Sonia Rinaldi, possibly I think this guy, the German guy, others, they all received phone calls at this time from Konstantin Rodive, who I referenced earlier. And one of those phone calls is actually, I believe it's on the worlditc.org website, so Macy was able to record it when it happened. So the question is, was anyone in this group responsible for perpetuating this fraud on everybody, which is very weird to imagine that happening. And Mark Macy, who's still around, I've tried to get him on the show, but he doesn't do interviews anymore, but he's the nicest guy, just like other people involved in these areas, super honest, really, really down-to-earth guy who, was quite changed, and his worldview was quite shaken up by all these experiences. And so I have no reason to doubt Mark Macy. And these other people at the time, Meek, I don't know about this guy. I don't know anything about him. So, I mean, he could be the weakest link, I guess, in this story. But it's just there's a lot more to this to just dismiss it based on that one factor. Why was it that a science fiction novel had so many similarities to this information? Who knows? Maybe the author of that novel was receiving some kind of subconscious input from that side, inspiring him to put details like that in his novel, or maybe it's the other way around. We do know that I'm sure there's an astral Middle Earth out there, because it's not that difficult to construct little worlds or even turn existing environments into a little playground of, for example, a famous novel or a world that you really, really love. So again, if there's an astral Middle Earth, which I'm sure people are making things like that on the other side, it's very possible that people constructed an afterlife environment to match whatever their favorite novel was. And I've had experiences in these kind of like theme parks, like basically related to Harry Potter. And so if people are doing that, then it's very plausible that that's why the information matched that book series. But some people will dismiss all of it based upon that, which I think it's a bit harsh, but I also have to respect that. Okay, so let's move into the next two case studies. That's enough about time stream. You can go to worlditc.org to find out more about that and see more images about that. Let's go into the next image. If this is the one I think I put on the next slide, then let me just prep you guys first. This is going to be an image that was, let me just check. Oh, okay, yeah. This is an image by a medium named Douglas Osborne. Now, Douglas Osborne passed away recently, like 2 or 3 months ago, if I believe, and he had a really nice group on Facebook. And so was actually a trance medium, but he also had physical mediumship abilities. Now, what we know from our friends who are physical mediums, they can create all kinds of phenomena, because it's like they're punching a hole in the dimensional fabric and allowing all types of things to come through. So in this case, he was directed by spirit to go out into a big sunny field and bring his analog camera and take a photo of just a bunch of nothing, and then develop it in a dark room. And when he did, instead of a photo of a field, his spirit team had managed to, they told him to stand in a precise place, and they managed to do something so that the photo that would come through would be a photo of the corresponding location on the astral Earth plane. So again, our Earth and that Earth are sort of combined together, as in there's different frequencies of the same location, but things are not going to be in the same place, or the geography, the topography may not be the same. So when he developed the photo, this is what he saw. This was the photo. So you have this kind of beautiful heavenly waterfall in a nature environment. And so the spirit team had him stand in this location to take the photo, and this way you have the perfect view of the waterfall. So we have what looks like some evergreen trees and beautiful blue water, and kind of looks like what you might imagine the higher astral type of plane, or maybe even middle astral, I don't know, but what you'd imagine that side to look like. And you have that blue tint as well. Some people have described the other side as often having a kind of blue tint behind it. So very, very beautiful, very magical looking, and I really like this photo a lot. It's a nice simple image of a waterfall that corresponded to, on our side it was just a big sunny field. But on that side, in the same location, you had this amazing waterfall. So it's almost worth just looking at the photo for a second. And so the late Douglas Osborne, he had a lot of great recordings, a lot of great material. I don't know if the Facebook group still accepts members. I believe it was Circle of Inner Spirit Radiance or something like that. And but he is now on the other side himself, and like other mediums, other people listed, they're not trying to get famous, they're not making any money from their mediumship or from their abilities or from their photos. These are people who often are retired and just trying to be of some service. Okay, so this was a really cool photo. Let's move into the next photo, which came about just 4 or 5 days ago. So this is breaking news, and it comes out of Davilson Silva. Davilson Silva is a Brazilian physical medium, kind of like these other guys, kind of like Douglas Osborne, kind of like Mark Macy. Super nice, down-to-earth guy, not looking for any publicity, not trying to make a single dollar. He wouldn't want to even come on this show because he doesn't want to do anything that is self-promotional. All he wants to do is inspire people through the phenomena that happens around him. In his case, I am not completely sure how he gets the images, but he implies that they just manifest. So, using, I guess, his existing digital camera equipment, when Spirit says take a photo, he takes a photo, and what appears on that photo is going to be something very special if his Spirit team is working with him at the same time. I'm not totally positive if it's as simple as that, but he basically says it's spontaneous when phenomena happens. And so a few days ago, I guess his Spirit team wanted him to take a photo, and he did. And here is the image that came through. And I just want to leave it on this image because this is my favorite image of the spirit world. And let's take a look. So I think I might have cut off a little bit at the bottom. I think you can see a little bit of her knees or something. But so this is an image I just really like. And by the way, you can see the reflection in you can see some of the reflection of what looks like his Davilson's room behind the image, and somehow there's this rectangular image that has projected itself onto this part of the screen. And so basically he didn't know who this was. There's no explanation about where the image came from, who this girl is, where the image was, why Spirit was showing him this. And I didn't know either. And then I first saw this, but I thought it was just a great image to kind of illustrate what the other side is like. So you have, a girl who's just as happy as can be and carefree and giving a gesture to show that she's as happy as can be. And obviously, look, you can see that she still has a dress on, still physical in an astral body, which is virtually identical to the body you have now, but without arthritis and viral syndromes and whatever. It's free of those issues, but still, it's like we are here, and so it's a lovely image, and just kind of shows you, hey, this is where we are now, and life is good. And that was the impression I got from this mysterious image that appeared on Davilson's screen. A couple days later, Davilson got some info about who this was. And so he wrote, Tracy, the happy girl among the flowers. When asked how I get these curious photos, I always explain everything happens in general spontaneously. Sometimes the entity comes looking for me. Believe me, I have even received nudges, pats on the back, like in the case of dear Marina, Bia, Granella, and other spirits who have come to my attention. I don't know who that is. This was the case with this recent image. A few hours ago, my dear friend from Wales, Neil Powell, said that the published photograph was of his sister Tracy Powell, born 64, passed away 87. Even at a distance of about 9,000 kilometers from each other, I felt the same emotion as that of the good British friend, and Neil's emotion was even stronger, and also mine when it was confirmed via EVP. I promised Neil a confirmation through the recorder that I'll send it to you, Neil. I said to him and invoked my guide, saying, at this very moment I evoke my guide and the spiritual guide of my friend Neil Powell to confirm that the girl of the recent trans image is really his sister. Please, my guide, just say yes or no. And then he picked up an EVP that said yes. I sent the sound file of the voice in EVP. I asked Neil if he heard it well, and he immediately answered me, yes, I have heard it. I closed and thanked my guide for his kindness, for the wonderful confirmation. Tracy, a lovely child, a sweet young girl, brightened up the life of the whole Powell family before she tragically passed away at a young age. Neil told me that he insistently asked his late father for some information about his dear sister without getting an answer. Thank you, Davilson. I've been asking for a sign since my father passed away earlier this year, Neil said. He even told me, I miss her a lot. I talk every day with your picture now. I've been waiting a long time for confirmation, my friend. He has, I now feel very happy for him and for Tracy. And then here's the image again. So Okay, I guess the image wasn't cut off. I thought I might have cut it off a bit by accident, but I guess not. But anyway, so here we have Tracy in the top left as a little girl. It'd been nice to have gotten an image though, possibly of her, as a teenager or something. But here it is. What he surmises as Tracy, the lovely girl among the flowers, who now is a famous image of the afterlife, and so now she is part of history, isn't she? Okay, so the next image I want to get to is from none other than Debbie. So we know Debbie Booth from about, I don't know, a couple months ago. I had her on the show because she was talking about her astral experiences with her husband who passed away. And Debbie is a good friend of mine and of Afterlife topics, and she also knows Davison Silva, and she had been hoping to herself that she could get an image of her husband when he was in full military uniform. This was before her husband, rather I should say, when her husband was on this planet, he was in the military in England, and she didn't have any photos of him in full military outfit. And she's upset because she always wanted to get an image like that of him that she could keep around, right? So anyway, Davison began getting some contacts from her husband Gary on the other side, and she already sees Gary fairly often through astral experiences, but Gary wanted to try to come through Davison and present an image of his own and be able to give this to her as a gift. And so this is what manifested one evening, I think just a couple days ago, and this is not coming up. For some reason, I don't have a slide up, but do not fear, I will still bring it up. Let's see. I clearly remember making a slide for this, but so here we have the image. I'm going to actually minimize myself a little bit so I don't block his face. There we go. Just thinking on my feet. So here is the image that came through of Gary, and of course on the top right side you can see the Gary in life in this world, and then here we have Gary in his full military regalia. And actually, let's go ahead and look back on the PowerPoint and get a little bit of info about this picture. So Gary Costello, born in Cayley, West Yorkshire, March 27th, 67, died on April 12th, 2004. In the world, he was a captain of the British Army and sent this message to Debbie that was approved and allowed for this publication. I've so much you want to ask me and dream about it, something that I would like to forget. Here I am dressed. Now, I want to let you guys know that Davison Silva is from Brazil. He speaks Portuguese, and then he has to use his English ability to retranslate it back to English. So there's going to be some translation issues here. Okay, so So here I am dressed in the uniform that you so admired. You saw me in it, my girl. I am more relieved and even happy that you have improved. Getting that crazy idea of every time something bothered you, you wanted to come here. So discouraging her from wanting to always come to that side. Our son is big, so she also has a son in spirit. Very beautiful and well cared for. I miss our youth. His affection, his way of loving me. Darling, go ahead, live, because you have a lot to learn in the world of those that think that only he is alive. So I think, again, some things are lost in translation a little bit. I'll leave a kiss on your cheeks and watch your thoughts and what you think. I'm not going to occupy any more of the medium who photographed me because he seems to be a little worn out by the spending of so much energy tonight when I was with him to pray together. See you soon. I'm going to pay you a visit and I want to find you happy, okay? How I miss Queen, Freddie Mercury, but I'd rather forget that song I love to hear so much. And I've already started singing Mama Just Killed a Man, ha 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 ha. Here it's even harder to forget certain passages, striking details of material life. And this torments me from time to time. See you soon, my little one. Okay, so this message caused some controversy, and it also caused me to actually, kind of wonder what Gary meant was he implying that he's unable to even like listen to music on the other side, because that's kind of the way that this message is structured, that he'd rather just forget the song he loved to hear so much. Here it's harder to forget certain passages and striking details of material life, and this torments him. And so this created the impression that he can't even listen to Queen. The afterlife is so limited, despite the fact that he can be in this, obviously wonderful environment and, dressed in full military garb. But even listening to music is now impossible. But rest assured, that's not actually what he meant. So again, we were going from Portuguese back to English, and so something was caught in missing in translation. Debbie clarified that what he meant was they used to listen to Queen all the time together, which there's no way Davison, the medium, could have known this, by the way. And what Gary misses so much is listening to Queen with Debbie here in this life. And what he misses about material life is having a life with her. So his life now is fine and great, but it's really easy to be sentimental and to miss the life that you used to have, no matter how good a life is now. And so Debbie told me that not only does he still listen to Queen on that side, he has seen Freddie Mercury in concert on that side. And Freddie Mercury is quite busy on the kind of middle astral earth level, I guess, doing concerts and living a life like he did here. And so Gary's been able to go and see Freddie Mercury. But the issue was that he's doing it without his wife, who is on the earth plane still. And that's what torments him. So it's a nice romantic message. And as a quick update to those of you guys who remembered the interview with Debbie that we had on the show, there was going to be an update because Debbie was planning to have her husband come and materialize for her. And that they were basically, that she said the spirit team was working on that he was going to come and visit her. It didn't happen when she said it was going to happen or when she thought it was going to happen, but it ended up still happening a couple of months later. And according to Debbie, Gary did indeed materialize into the bedroom with her, even though it was quite dark. But he got into bed with her, and she said he was, it was her husband, completely solid up in the flesh. But she suspects that he was materializing via her own ectoplasm, and that's why the lights had to stay off. And so it's kind of like she was operating as a physical medium briefly, and that's how Gary was able to come and see her. So I thought that was an interesting update because it's certainly not as easy, I think, for spirit to just walk through the door. But in some situations, they can materialize into our own homes by using our energy and our biological substance to kind of coat themselves in a, if you want to call it like a garb. And then through that, it's a very strange process of physical mediumship, they can indeed appear for us. So that concludes this presentation of images from the other side. Here we have up again the image of the girl among the flowers. And perhaps many more images will come along, photographs of the afterlife, whether you choose to believe that these are real or not. I definitely lean toward the belief in all of these as being real, accurate images and correspondences of the afterlife, especially I think these, that the waterfall by Osborne and these images by Davison Silva. The time stream images I have to stay on the fence about. But I also think it's perfectly plausible that those images are real as well. And so, of course, special thanks to Mark Macy, the late Douglas Osborne, who is in spirit, of course, and Davison Silva for giving me permission to use his images in a presentation like this. And so, a special shout out to everybody, and also Debbie as well. And perhaps there will be more images coming along in the future of the spirit world as communication technology increases. And also, of course, there is Sonia Rinaldi's images. It's just that those are always portraits, not necessarily images where you can look at the vistas and the landscapes like you can with these. And finally, there are more images out there. Also from the old time stream images. There's stuff I did not include on this slide. And Silva as well has more images that he's produced over the years as well. And perhaps there's other mediums that have developed things too. So thanks for watching. This is Afterlife Topics. Hope this was informative. Really next level paranormal stuff, right? Taking things to the next level here on Afterlife Topics. That's it for now. You can stop by Afterlife Topics Metaphysics on Facebook or contact me at the information down below, or pick up books like Understanding Life After Death or The Afterlife and Beyond. Easy to find at afterlifetopics.com. Thanks for watching this, and I'll catch you guys on the next